Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Michael. We're very excited to have you joining us this morning. I want to say very warm and humid morning.
I don't know if you had the same experience when we left our house. We're a little up, and we live in the barracks farm area, so we're a little higher altitude. But when we came down into town, by the time I got in my car, it was all wet.
It was all fogged up.
It was fogged up. It was wet. It was
because I saw that it was supposed to be 80 today. I walked out of the house. I'm like, this is not 80. This is 50. So I got my extra jacket and everything. Came out of the car and I'm like, oh wow, it is going to be 80 today. You can feel it. You can feel it. But that's not an excuse to avoid getting a café con leche or whatever makes you get going in the morning, settling down and watching some Today y Mañana. We have two fantastic guests. I already know it's going to be an amazing show. We're going to be joined very shortly by Irina Dovganetskiy. She's the owner of withSimplicity Beauty here, and as well as later in the show by Lee Elberson. He's the CEO of Clayborne Education. So we've got some fantastic local entrepreneurs and guests that are going to be joining us. So we're very excited about that.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to be on the show here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I know I was supposed to be on 2 weeks ago, but I caught a little scratchy throat, so Nick had to fill in for me.
So Nick filled in.
He did an okay job.
He did almost as good, as well as you would have done.
As best as he could, right? As best as he could.
Poor Nick. Hopefully he's not watching. But always love being here on the I Love CVille Network set with you. Of course, always feeling gratitude towards our presenters, Emergent Financial Services, Castle Hill Cider, Craddock Serious Insurance, our good friends Miguel and Chit and Carolina at Craddock Serious Insurance, as well as Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. So I don't know about you, but I am very excited to jump right in.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So we are very excited to welcome to the show this morning Irina Dovganetskiy. She is the owner of withSimplicity Beauty. Thank you, Irina, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So for those who don't know you, who haven't met you before on the show, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to start withSimplicity.
So I always say that withSimplicity was an accidental business. It's more of a hobby that turned into a business. But back in 2014, when I had my third child, I quit my job and I was going through this detox at home and everything had to be tossed away. And my husband thought I was crazy. But so we had organic detergents and all of the things prepping for the baby. But then my makeup and my skincare was not clean. And I'm like, wait, I'm so worried about this baby and things in the house, but I'm still putting makeup and skincare that is pretty toxic or glitter. And I'm like, well, as a woman, that gives me confidence. And I enjoy my routine, especially taking care of my skin. So I don't want to give it up. And back about 10 years ago, it was not mainstream. And it was really hard to find something that worked with my skin and that I enjoyed. So I decided to kind of make things for myself, not even considering to sell stuff. It was just something that I wanted to do for myself.
A need that you had.
I needed, and my husband had a cracked lip, and actually one of our first products was a lip balm that I made for him because I just got tired of his lip cracking in the winter and it gets on the pillowcase, and I'm like, we gotta stop this. So that was one of my first little adventures and trying out making my own products.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you mentioned the organic aspect because our mother was has been big in organic since we were born, I think. And we grew up eating she would only buy organic fruits and vegetables, organic milk and whatnot. And it's kind of funny because it's almost it's passed on generation because maybe it's because of the story she tells us, what goes into non-organic stuff, pesticides and chemicals, this and that. So I guess maybe the horror stories work because at this point it's every time if I would go to buy something, it's I feel like I gotta buy organic.
But you forget to think about it sometimes with what you put on your skin.
Yeah.
You think about, okay, I'm eating this, so I don't want to absorb it. But
exactly,
in reality,
your skin absorbs too.
Can absorb a lot of things as well.
Your skin is your biggest organ. So, and I grew up similar. So we grew up farming, and my childhood, all the days we're working on canning tomato sauces, and my mom was just gardening. And then when you got to the United States, it was all this convenience. I'm like, I will never can or garden. And then we have a mini farm and we garden and they can. And I'm like, oh no, I'm turning into my mom.
Yeah, but in a good way though.
In a good way. You just start appreciating things and educating, and then you get older and you want to take care of yourself and make sure you have the health and,
Exactly.
age gracefully.
Yeah, but mentioning, it's interesting when you mention that the skin is the biggest organ in the body, because I don't think we even think in that manner. Like, it's like, our skin absorbs it, it changes and whatnot.
And it's your protective barrier from the outside and your immune system. Everything kind of starts with our skin.
Yeah, that's incredible. So we see you got some products here.
Yeah.
Please go through and tell us about them.
Well, I got you guys a little lip balm.
Lip balm, perfect.
You gotta
Alex
try
definitely
it.
needs it.
Important for the winter.
Yes, you gotta have some lip balm. And then for my husband who loves to shave, got his favorite aftershave for you guys to try. Some beard oil and some soap, so you guys could test it out. Even though we have a full range for skincare for ladies and men. So, and then also
I'm glad you didn't bring the ladies one. If we could
You
put a little
lipstick
or the
come
mascara.
on.
Nah, I don't think. I mean, maybe we're gonna a lot of likes if we start putting it on, but I don't think that would have been. We would have been chewed. Yeah, quick delete that.
No, next time I'll come in, I'll bring my makeup and put you guys to a test and watch you guys do makeup on each other. How about that?
I think I'm gonna be sick that day. We'll bring in Xavier.
We'll get makeup here.
He'll be the king.
He'll do it. So what's kind of unique? Because I know you focused a lot on being clean and organic. How do you go through developing these products for men and for women?
Yeah.
With that in mind, how do you sort of go through this and say, okay, I can't use these certain chemicals. So how do you go about developing them from a natural perspective?
Nature is such a powerful thing. So just taking ingredients, if I'm developing, say, a product for acne, so you kind of do some research which oils or certain ingredients that will help with it, and then you have a combination, and then you kind of blend them together to see, how can we repair the barrier, how can we hydrate it, how we can manage the bacteria, and we kind of put it together in this really awesome components that go in, so you have multiple vitamins in it, kind of to take care of the barrier, bacteria, and hopefully heal it if it's, just your regular teenage acne or if it's hormonal acne. We try to kind of play with it, but started out with me just researching things online, but then I was able to take some online classes for organic science and formulations through a school in London. I got to travel there a little bit, so I got my education from there and then went to aesthetics school as well. I'm currently still in school, but I just love learning. There's just so much to learn, and as soon as you think you learned everything, there's something else to learn. So, just continue learning and developing and making our products better and better.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. And a couple of shout-outs. We got some people joining us already. Ana Bashara, thanks for watching the show this morning. Johnny Ornelas, amigo del programa. Lucrecia Morales, amiga del programa. Muchísimas gracias for watching this morning. And, of course, Caravella Vincenzo from Italy. Thank you for joining us and liking the show this morning.
Yeah, so I actually have a quick question. So how many times would you go like a trial run, for example, for like the aftershave? Like how many times does it take like to get something right?
So some products we could nail it within 1 or 2 formulas, or sometimes we'll test it and tweak, the scent, the feel. Aftershave took a while just because my husband likes that little burn. So to get a good, like a burn, but also gentle on the skin. So that one took a while. So it starts with I usually make a couple, like 2 or 3 formulas, variations in different textures, scents, and then we'll test it out, and then we kind of narrow it down until it's like, okay, we all love it, it's doing its job, and then we put it out in the market.
Interesting. All right. So if I try that and it burns too much, I'm gonna have to blame your husband.
Yeah, you will.
It will. I just don't want to end up like what's it called? Kevin McAllister. Was he Home Alone? Yeah.
So a few tries.
A few tries. Interesting.
And then some products never make it because we just end up not loving it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what are some of the products and services out there for the women's side, for the ladies that watch the show? I gotta be fair, most of our audience is women, so I gotta make sure that they know what kind of things are available.
So we do full range of skincare, full range of makeup. So if you come to our store in Harrisonburg, Virginia, we'll do complimentary mini makeover, get you color match, and get your skincare routine. But we're super excited to start offering our European-styled facials, and some of the things that we're bringing to the Valley, like a buccal facial massage, which is known in Europe, and then it's coming. So if you go to DC, New York, California, it's very popular there, but nobody's doing it in the Valley, and selfishly, that's probably the reason I went to school, because I couldn't find somebody to get it done. And I've been going to a lady, actually Italian lady in Valentina in DC to get it done, and she was amazing. And I'm like, I can't travel, 2 hours and just to get a facial. So I'm like, I'm going to school and I'm gonna do this.
That's incredible.
That's
so
great.
what kind of makes that different? What makes something a European style facial?
Focus on more of natural. So isn't the ingredients that we use, and going back to the buccal facial, it's actually intraoral massage technique. So while you work on your muscles outside and get them prepped, but then I do put on the gloves and go through your cheeks and work your muscles on the inside. So we carry a lot of emotions. We sometimes clench our jaw. People with TMJ, now it's this a buccal fat removal pad. It's used to be a cosmetic surgery, popular about 20, 30 years ago. Now it's coming back. It's a cosmetic surgery procedure. But like with my background and aspect, like I would never want to go under a knife, but I still want to age gracefully, and I still want to look good. So doing and working your muscles and keeping the collagen and keeping your muscles tight, and with our gravity and just aging, it's pulling down. So being able to work those muscles up, and also helps with TMJ. One of the clients that I have been coming to me weekly, and she's like, every time I get up, my bite is a little bit different, just because I release the tension. So it's a very powerful technique, and I'm super excited to be able to offer it.
That's incredible. It's like almost like facial massaging and facial yoga.
It is kind of, but yes, it's from inside and out, so you get a full benefits of it. So it's pretty
fantastic.
good.
Yeah, it can help people with, the pain that comes from TMJ, or from just the fact that it's true, a lot of our tension can be focused in the face area.
We keep a lot of our emotions, or clench the jaw, so I'm able to kind of work with the muscles and release them. And it's also so super relaxing. So people are like, it doesn't sound like it's fun. Will it hurt? No, it's like super, super relaxing for you. And right out of high school, I used to be a dental assistant. Excuse me. So I'm like, I'm very comfortable around the mouth.
You know how to,
I'm like, I got this.
That's fantastic. So out of curiosity, what was it like? Our audience loves the entrepreneurship side. What was it like to kind of take that plunge and say, all right, I'm doing this for myself, because I want to, have these natural products, to saying, all right, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll sell this and actually start a business with
Alex,
this.
that's a crazy story. So I start doing it for myself, and then I'm like, okay, these expensive ingredients, and I'm like just giving them away. And like Christmas time, our obviously income was cut in half. I quit my job. I'm like, I'm gonna make them and pass them out. People like them. Then my sister's like, okay, can you make this? And I'm like, okay, so all I'm doing is like ordering all of these expensive things. I'm like, okay, maybe I could start charging a little bit. And people kept on buying. So I'm like, all right, I guess they don't hate it if they're putting the money towards it. Then January 12th, 2015, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I type A, so I can't sit still, and I need to do things. I went to the city hall. I registered, got my name, opened the LLC, and I'm like, I'm going to start doing like a little Etsy shop, and then I started doing little markets. So that first year, I just started going to like a crafts show, little fair market, and whoever will invite me, I'll be there. And things sold pretty well. And then I'll start getting repeat customers in person. And then they're like, oh, when will I see you next time? Or where can I buy? And I'm like, you could go on Etsy and buy. But I had such a hard time getting people in 2015 to shop online with me. I'm like, just go to Etsy and buy it. And like, I will
things have changed.
I'm like, I will hand deliver. Excuse me. Go order. But like, it was hard. I got orders on Etsy from other people in the United States, but I couldn't get local. So I'm like, told my husband, I'm like, I want a little shop in downtown. He was like, he was just probably being sarcastic. It's like, sure, whatever, like, go try. So I walked, and it's like, couldn't find anything, but I was like really particular that I wanted to be on Main Street in downtown. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find somebody that would blend well to share a space. And this is the time we start getting like food trucks. And I'm like, okay, if they can do it out of the truck, why can't I? So I'm home and tell my husband, like, what if we get this like Airstream? It's a really cool camper, looks like a bullet. You restore it, and I park it somewhere in downtown. And I don't think he thought I'd actually do it. He was like, well, if you find a parking and somebody would actually let you do this, sure. I went that week. and got us a parking. I didn't have the Airstream. I didn't know if that's even allowed, but I signed the lease for parking.
Your husband learned a valuable lesson, I think, that day.
Yes. He didn't even know what Airstream was, so we had to like Google. So then I had to go to, overcome the whole city hall. They're like, Airstream, what's an Airstream? I'm like, let me Google this for you. Like, I promise it'll be aesthetically pleasing. You'll be parked, here on Main Street. I already got the lease. And so they approved. We found a beat-up little trailer in North Carolina and took us 6 months to restore it. And that was our first storefront.
Wow.
I think we got the storefront was 2016.
That's incredible.
And how many years did you do it at the Airstream?
1 year, and then we were able to go from 200 square feet to 2,700 square feet storefront on the Main Street. And then in February, we were able to purchase a whole building in downtown. So from a little table in downtown to we got a building.
That's amazing.
But it was a lot of just being crazy but not being scared of it. And I'm like, okay, the worst thing they could say at City Hall, like, you're nuts, and no.
Exactly. I mean, and if you don't ask, the answer's already no.
Yeah. So
many people that we interview, really that's kind of what entrepreneurship comes down to. Like, at some point you have to take the risk, right? There's going to be a whole list of reasons to do it, and there's always going to be a list of reasons not to do it.
Absolutely.
But at some point you have to say, it's time to go. Like, I have to actually do this if I want to find out if it's going to work.
Oh, no, absolutely. And for me, I think I was kind of glad that I didn't find a spot right away because I don't think I had enough customer base at that time to sustain like a full building and try to get staff. So that Airstream was more than enough for the first year. And then another business bought it off of me. So she was there for another year. So it was kind of curated like a little space for somebody else to start. And it was just very low overhead. So it was a good little start for us.
That's fantastic. And now you've grown tremendously. And I believe that you're now international.
Yeah, we went to Canada this year. Whoop, whoop.
Wow.
So we're super excited to be able to sell to Canada now.
That's
have
amazing.
This market.
And so what's it like? How have you kind of managed the growth part? Because, I mean, it's one thing to start, and then how have you sort of, as an entrepreneur, managed, growing versus making sure you maintain what the customer base that you had in Harrisonburg?
So it's a team. So it started out with me, then getting my husband, then my best friend, and now I have a 9 ladies team that do an incredible job and just finding those right people for right department and right workload and stuff. So right now I just said I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my team. There's no way I could do all of it, or sometimes I'm like, man, they're smarter than I am. So just finding the right team who has enough passion and loves the company and the mission and what we're doing as much as I do, and it's a right team.
That's amazing. And you can see it because you're able, which it's funny because when we were talking with Jeff Cameron from I Love CVille, he said similar. In other words, the growth part happens when you get the right team in place. This way the day-to-day can be run, and that kind of frees up a little bit of your brain to have room to say, all right, how do I grow? How do I expand? How do I take this next step? Because the brain, can only take so much if you have to actually be running it, 24 hours a day.
And as soon as I got opportunity, I enrolled in school. I don't know what was I thinking, but I actually love it. So back to school, and I love that creative aspect of the business. I like to come up with ideas, but I don't necessarily like the daily grind of it. So having the team who actually thrives and enjoys it has been amazing because I get to do what I love versus like sitting there playing with numbers or doing social media. I'm like, no, I'm good.
You let the other people who enjoy that take care of it.
Yeah, and then I'm surprised when people are even a girl who does some of our production. She has to order ingredients and have all these numbers and predictions, and like just look at her papers, like it gives me stress and anxiety. Like I'm like, no, thank you. But she loves it. She's like, this is so relaxing for me. I'm like, shout out to Christina.
There you go.
And then I have Mary who kind of runs and manages, and she's been amazing. Just when I'm not there, everything is going to be perfect. Mary's in charge.
There you go. I mean, it's all about having the right people in place, the right team. Yeah. So what do you see like coming next? What kind of people expect coming down the pipeline?
So we've already talked about like the Canada, and then also just adding services too. So when I want to be able for you to come in and I'm able to create a skin routine. I can maintain it for you. I could be able to do like facials and just anything skin related I get excited about, and just to be able to provide it for the customers and see where it takes us.
That's just the way to do it.
Exciting.
That is
Now, just quickly, when you're doing the facial, is that something like, if you're like a masseuse and you do massage, is that something that you need like a certificate for?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You
I
do?
just finished my 2 state boards and I have 2 more in the fall to do some certain things. Yeah, you have to. I go to Blue Ridge School of Aesthetics here in Stanton, and then you have to graduate from that, and then you have to take state boards. Yeah.
Which gives people great peace of mind to know that
It does,
this isn't just someone saying, hey,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to do this. There's experience, there's knowledge, there's
yeah.
expertise that you have that goes into this.
And if you come in, you trust me with your face.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not like your hand or your back. It's your face. I better know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. So, I mean, which is why your customers keep coming back.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And so, last question I always like to ask, where can people find you both online to get some of the product services and also in Harrisonburg?
So online, we have an amazing, easy-to-use platform. It's withSimplicityBeauty.com. Or if you're local to Harrisonburg, we have a shop on 66 East Market Street, right in downtown. Or actually, we have a wholesale account who has some of our products here in Charlottesville, Shop Darling Boutique. So they have,
Darling Boutique,
yeah,
yep.
they have some of our products there as well. But we ship pretty much every day right now. So.
Well, there you have it, withSimplicityBeauty.com.
Yep.
Very easy to remember, and definitely encourage you to check it out, as well as if you're in the Harrisonburg area, go visit.
Or if you're in Canada, now it's there
now
too.
Canada, yes.
Canada.
We'll get to Italy.
There we go, little by little. Little by little. So if
by
you've got
little.
any Canadian viewers.
World domination.
Exactly. So we'll start small. We'll start in North America.
Yes.
And then cross the Atlantic. Well, Irina, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now as we switch from one great entrepreneur to another, it's always fun to just hear the growth story. I think I love, especially.
That,
it's
the passion
really
always that always excites me too. Just to see the passion that these people have, these entrepreneurs have for what they do.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, incredible story too. I mean, it's amazing too. Long journey. Sometimes I think that
it's finding that need, that say, hey, you know what? This is a need in the area that either for me or for others it's not being met. How do I meet it? And then,
but this time though it was interesting because the need for herself.
Yeah.
Irina was like, "Oh, I want something that I could put, skincare exactly that I can't find." So she made it for herself. Then her family and friends wanted some. Then slowly charging, and then it's amazing how it grows like that. It's almost like, I don't want to make it too simplistic. Almost like watching like a seed grow into a plant. It's like the same thing. You see this little thing, and then a month later it's like this, and then 3 months later it's tomato plant's huge.
At the very beginning it moves slowly, and you're like that thing. How is that ever going to become like a tomato plant? And then 2 months later you have a bazillion tomatoes, and you don't know what to do with them. So it's the beauty of growth of business. And speaking of another amazing entrepreneur, we're very excited to welcome to the show Lee Elberson. He is the CEO of Clayborne Education, among a man of many other talents and things. I know him very well because he's board member emeritus and 2-year chair emeritus for Community Investment Collaborative.
Yeah.
So, Lee, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael and Alex. And it was great to hear Irina's story. I am always inspired by listening to entrepreneurs explain their passion and hear their passion grow into something that serves the community.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And so, I mean, I know you well. I know Michael's met you before. Some of our audiences, I know you've been on Jerry Miller's I Love CVille show, but for the Today Mañana audience that maybe doesn't know, just tell us a little quickly about yourself and a little bit about Clayborne.
All right, tell me quickly about myself. Okay, so I am a 3rd-generation entrepreneur. My granddad had a boat building business, built really big boats for the Navy, and then in retirement built little boats, which he turned into a business. My dad ran a merchandising company and did merchandising for the Olympic Festival, for these big festivals across the country, and so I got to witness it growing up. And anyone who's had a parent who's run a business shows that you get to witness some of the exciting things about growing a business, but you also see some of the hard times that come across a business. And so I think I sort of shied away from that early on. And so my initial career was as an experimental physicist. So I worked on fusion energy research at a national lab for about a decade. And, I think just sort of had this moment where I felt this drawing, this calling to serve the community. And I knew that I wanted to do that by starting my own business. Now, I didn't know what business I wanted to start at the time. I think many entrepreneurs, you have this idea where it's like, I want to do this thing. And you think, what is that thing? And it's like, I don't know. What am I good at?
The what am I good at part can sometimes be really difficult too. It's like, what am I good at?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm good at physics, working at a national lab. I don't know how that translates. But I was lucky. I had a really good relationship with my grandmother. She was always a lifelong supporter. And I remember talking to her one time, and I was explaining to her the statistics of the lottery and why it really never made sense to purchase a lottery ticket. And she stopped and she said, you're so good at explaining stuff. You could explain anything, and you do it in such a way that's so exciting. She was like, why don't you start tutoring? Why don't you have a business in tutoring? And God, I remember thinking, I was like, that's such a great idea. I love working with people one-on-one. I love explaining stuff. I love that discovery process. And then that process of when you explain something to somebody else and they get it. Right? And so when I moved to Charlottesville, I actually had another business idea in mind, but finally came to the realization that, if I'm going to be tutoring and I want to start a business, these two really need to merge together. And so I had started an online business, and Clayborne Education was started by my business partner, and I had worked for him as a contractor, and had this idea that when I start a business, I really respect him. I need to go and tell him, I'm going to start a competing tutoring company in Charlottesville. Yeah. And my business partner, being the brilliant guy he is, said, I have a better idea. Why don't we be business partners? And I remember looking at him thinking, okay, you know what? Actually, I had a different idea when I came in here. That is a better idea. We should be business partners. And so I think that was, one of the best business decisions that he and I ever made, because we just had different skill sets. And that's the best thing you can hope for in a business partner is have different skill sets. And so that was 2014. And, at that point, I started thinking about growing the business, and my business partner put into place a lot of the pedagogical practices and curriculum and things that we use in the business. And from that point, Clayborne really grew into what it is today, which is, obviously I'm biased, but one of the premier tutoring, test prep, and educational consulting firms in the state of Virginia. And we also serve nationwide and sometimes globally. I was listening to Irina's idea about serving globally. And we actually, in 2015, purchased the oldest tutoring company in Charlottesville. We acquired Champion Tutoring. And so that was part of a growth strategy. And, in hindsight, there's a lot of things you learn in growing a business, as you know. And, I think at that point, we realized that sometimes you actually can grow too fast. If you grow too fast, you're not serving the students in the best of their capacity. And so at that point, we started to make a more intentional effort to try to serve our students, and instead of serving as many as we possibly could, saying, let's scale it back and let's, when we serve a client, make sure that they're a right fit for our mission. And so at that point, we really started to revisit our core values and mission, and that is to serve one-to-one, like very personalized and intense high dosage tutoring. And high dosage tutoring,
deeper rather than broader.
Yes, absolutely. And with that, we started seeing like much more significant outcomes, not just in scores. I mean, scores are always going to go up, but in feedback from parents saying, my student is so much more confident in their abilities. I've learned to love education. And I think especially nowadays, it's extremely important to get students to go out and seek out education on their own and really spark that joy. And so that really is our mission today. And we have become a hub for many different questions. We have school systems, we have parents from all over ask us, what is the best step forward? Should I be doing tutoring? And the answer isn't always yes. Many times it's, I think with your time, I think you could do this as a parent, or here's some resources for you, especially for under-resourced families. Tutoring can be expensive. Even if you hire a college kid and say, I'm going to pay you $40 an hour, that's out of a lot of families' budgets. And so what can families do for free to help their students achieve that? And I think that's what we really take pride in at Clayborne is being able to serve that need. Now, most of our business is preparing students for college, but we prepare for a variety of different things. So we do academic tutoring. We prepare kids to get into high school, which is competitive. Can you believe that you have to take tons of tests to get into competitive high schools?
Having been born in 1992, it was never on the radar.
Oh my gosh!
Just go to high school.
Yeah, tell me about your college application process, because mine was I clicked a couple boxes and I got accepted. That is not the way it works today, And I think for parents it can be pretty overwhelming. So we help sort of provide clarity on that, and so that's pretty much what I do at Clayborne. Maybe a nice little offshoot of this is we also, great timing, in March of 2020, March 1st of 2020, we started the Better Future Foundation, which was a nonprofit aimed to help under-resourced students at Charlottesville High School specifically go through the entire college application process, starting with 10th grade, continuing 11th, 12th, and then their first year of college. Again, thinking about really getting in deep instead of just blanketing as many students as we can. And now we're opening it up to other schools. But, that really, I think, is at the heart of Clayborne, is trying to serve the community regardless of the socioeconomic need.
Exactly. Which you do, which is, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because you also have it for our Latino community. I know you work with the LEAP program, which you can tell us a little bit about, as well as just what are your thoughts? I know one of the things a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is you sit there and say, helping the community, doing that part, that's for when I retire. But how do you kind of view that and balance that in and meld that into what you're doing now? Because you're growing a company, you're still in the thick of it. You're not sitting here saying, all right, it's time for me to exit and I'm going to retire, and that's when I give back. You're kind of doing that now. So maybe combine a little bit of those two things, the LEAD program, and then also kind of your thoughts on how you do that as an entrepreneur, to give back while you're still growing the company.
Okay, I'm going to do those in reverse order, because I think that latter question is a good one. I get many people ask me, because, I poured my heart in the CIC, continue to pour my heart in the CIC and the SBDC. I think it's one of the most amazing organizations in our community. Obviously, Better Future Foundation, Computers for Kids, City of Promise. There's a number of organizations that I do my best to volunteer. And when I have friends say, I just don't know, I don't really have a skill set that's going to fit into a nonprofit, I tell them, you'd be surprised if you just go and show up, how thankful many of the nonprofits in town are there that you will contribute anything. Yes. And even if it's an hour or two a week, it's so empowering, I think, for yourself to feel like you've given back. The organization, the nonprofit, feels like they can utilize your services. And then the end result is that whatever population that nonprofit is serving, they're benefiting. So it's really three different aspects of that are really benefiting. So I think many people can contribute an hour a week, and I would say just find somewhere where your passions align and say, look, I make spreadsheets. Is there anything I can do to help your organization out?
You make excellent spreadsheets.
Or I'm really great at making whatever it is, just go to the organization. And so I think that in terms of a business owner, one of the things that I know you've seen at CIC and I see many times is that when you're starting a business, you think, I don't want to charge too much, because I don't want people to think I'm too expensive. I want to be able to have this spectrum and be all things to all people, and say, so I'm going to keep my prices low because I don't want to price people out. And what I tell people, especially entrepreneurs who've been in business for a decade, and I listen to their prices and I say, so your prices haven't changed in 10 years? Have you gotten any better at your job? Oh, I've gotten so much better. Have your systems gotten better? Yes. Has inflation gone up? Yes. So what am I missing that your prices aren't reflecting your level of expertise? So I think making sure that entrepreneurs aren't scared to raise their prices and feel like they have to come up with some justification. If you're getting better at your business, you should be raising your prices. And I tell them, by raising your prices, what you're really doing is you're separating yourself from others, because there will be price sensitivity. If I went out and told people I charge $50 an hour as a tutor, they would probably think I'm a pretty crappy tutor, because most of the respected tutors in Charlottesville charge a lot more than that. And so you're just setting yourself apart. And guess what? Once you set that price, you can always offer discounts. You can always offer free services, but you should be charging what you're worth. And that allows you to be able to donate hours to a nonprofit or have a sort of nonprofit arm of your organization that's able to deliver these services. So that was your second question.
That's key advice there on the pricing.
Yeah.
And to be able to do
That's a problem we see often with the law entrepreneurs we talk to. We sometimes worry, it's like, I understand that you want to bring business, but at the same time, you can't be handcuffing yourself because you're worried about, well, what if some people feel like the price is too high? No, you need to do what's best for yourself and for your business. And sometimes that is actually charging what you're worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to attract a certain population of people depending on what you charge. Again, if I charged $50 an hour, I wouldn't expect to get clients who were that invested. $50 an hour is usually what you pay a college student, and that's maybe they're going to cancel a lot and they're not really bought in. Yeah. I want clients and families who are going to say, I want you to help my student really engage, and to do that you need to charge a certain price. So anyway, that's my recommendation for all entrepreneurs is increase your prices. You're probably worth it, right? Don't be afraid.
Yep, exactly.
The second piece, LEAP program enrichment, is something that we're getting ready to serve. I believe this is going to be our fifth, is that true? I think our fifth summer serving the Latino Education Advancement Program. It's ran by this amazing teacher, Claudia Ramirez, and she is just great at running the program. Her predecessor, Melanie Rodriguez, really set up this program about 20 years ago, and it's meant to help under-resourced Latino students in the Richmond area gain access to a summer program where they can take English classes, they take Spanish classes, they take math, they take English, and then we take care of the college counseling piece.
Oh, wonderful.
We originally went in and they asked us to do SAT prep, and I remember thinking, SAT prep isn't the best use of everybody's time. And that's even true, that's especially true today. And so I asked for some latitude to be able to broaden the program and say, if your goal is to help these students be successful in the future, we certainly want to give them access to resources so that they can attend a four-year college if they want to. But maybe a better fit would be a community college. Virginia has some of the best community colleges in the country. And with the transfer programs,
PVCC to UVA.
100%. I mean, we had a student go from PVCC to William & Mary and is now going to Harvard Law. So you can look at that, and when you say, where did you graduate from? You say, I graduated from William & Mary, and they say, wow. You don't say, oh, I graduated from William & Mary, but I went to PVCC for 2 years. You got a degree from William & Mary, and that is astounding. And so I think the latitude we ask for is saying, let's look at all of the spectrum of possibilities. And what that really means, especially when you come from a family with reduced needs, is let's look at the true cost of college.
Yes.
This is going to sound very weird coming from somebody who runs a business that is in college prep, but college, in many cases, doesn't make sense financially. You probably get this. Parents will come and say, so I'm going to take on $200,000 of debt so that my student can get a degree in this. And I think, if I had millions, then I probably would do that. But if I was cash strapped, I would think, I don't think that's the best use of your resources. It's putting you in a tough financial position. Yep. And furthermore, your student could probably get to the same results with less resources. And so that really is what we've integrated into the LEAP program is giving them good financial sense. Here's how much it costs for college in total. Here's how you would pay for that long term. And then I think another piece that we've done is there's a big piece of culture fit. There's many colleges you go to where the Latino population is 3%. If I was Latino, I would think, I want to go somewhere where I feel like I'm going to fit in. Yeah. I'm a Cajun, as you can see. I'm not just, as your brother said, I didn't just raid the Joker's wardrobe. Green, purple, and gold are Cajun or Mardi Gras colors, and I come from Cajun culture, and so around this time, I feel like I want to connect with other people who understand Cajun culture, which is, it's a much slower environment down there. It's really focused on community giving. It's focused on enjoying food and music. And many people down there sort of they work to live, right? Their job, when they clock out, they are really wanting to engage. And so, when I came up here, when I found somebody who was from New Orleans, I thought, oh, great. So when we get together, we sort of cook for each other and show that acts of service. And so in the LEAP program, we're trying to just present students with all of these different resources. And we've had so many success stories of students saying, I think a better fit for me would be to go to community college first, or, I do want to work for a year. There's nothing wrong with taking a gap year, working and figuring out how difficult it is to work a 40-hour-a-week job close to minimum wage.
And sometimes, we see it in Charlottesville Scholarship Program too, technical schools and other, but sometimes I think there's a good chunk of students you'll see where that high school kid wants to go technical school, but there's sort of a mindset of the parents like, no, I've done a bad job if my kid doesn't go to a 4-year college. Like, I've been a bad parent.
Yeah, there is a bit of a stigma against, sorry to interrupt, but there is a bit of a stigma that it's like if you didn't go immediately into a 4-year college from 18 to $22, you're like a failure or like an outcast.
But in reality, you can do extremely well. Particularly if that's your child's passion, to say, what's the path to get you training in this thing you love to do, which may or may not involve a 4-year institution.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head, Michael. There is a stigma associated, and it's a classification system. If you went to a 4-year college, then you are successful. That's what we've been programmed to think, and it's in all elements of social strata. If you go somewhere and people say, "Where did you go to school?" is the first question. Think about how you're classifying them.
Yeah.
What do you do, and where did you go to school? Right.
First two questions.
My first question when somebody is, tell me about your favorite vacation. Right. Like, get to something that is exciting. And so I think if we can remove that stigma from parents and they understand that the path to success means what does success mean to a student, first of all, and it can mean a variety of different things. Just graduating from a 4-year university is not a marker of success. If they are happy in their position and they're able to do the things that they love, I consider that a success. Even if that means you're going to, do a gap year for a year and then go to trade school for 8 months and then, hey, I'm a plumber, but I really love this because it allows me to travel with a band and I'm able to play music and explore some of my passions.
My father always tells the story of our dad that a guy he knew, because he was in, Smith Barney up in New York. They were doing all the fixed income finance stuff, but there was a guy who did like the back office. And my dad always says, like, this guy was really smart. And so they would often ask him, how come you don't, go for that front office thing and stuff? And the guy said, I just want my simple life. I come in here, being back office, I come in at 9. The moment I clock out at 5, I'm done. No one calls me like, oh, this trade's not going well, or you need to come in and do this. He said, my responsibility ends. I go home, I relax, and I have no more stress. And my dad realized, there's different versions of that. Guy was never going to make the big ticket, dollar numbers that he could have made. But that was the life he wanted. And so to be able to look at people and say, pursue the life that brings success, can look like joy, even if it's simple and it doesn't actually involve a big paycheck. You just have to figure out what it is that brings you satisfaction.
I think as an entrepreneur, that's especially true. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've fantasized many times, like, God, what if I just went to like a job where I just clocked in and clocked out? As an entrepreneur, you're always on call, right?
24/7.
Like, not only do I have Clayborne, I think you know this, I have another business, 8 Hats, a web hosting business, and so my phone is pretty much always dinging with some sort of message. And so I think for entrepreneurs, it's, should I grow my business, right? Should I start hiring people? And I tell them, once you grow your business and you start hiring, you have a different skill set. When you start managing people, you just have an additional burden on you. And I sometimes think about, man, when you're just an entrepreneur by yourself, your level of complication is so small, and maybe you're not going to build a $10 million or even a $1 million business. But if you're happy in the income you're making and you can keep things simple, just think about that when you go to grow, because I can think about different growth areas we've had in our business where I think, I'm actually working harder and making less. I think I'm doing something wrong this year.
Well, there's growth to achieve a goal, and then sometimes there's growth for growth's sake. In which case you then look back and say, why did I do, you know what I mean? Why do I grow for the sake of growth? Just because people tell me I need to have $1 million or a $10 million business. Why?
Well, listen, we understand, like, when talking about parameters of success, like going to 4-year college, it's also the same with money. Like, everyone's like, well, I'm always trying to raise more money, but in some ways, time can also be money too. So if you could actually find yourself different ways to save yourself time, that in essence is also a benefit, and we always have these parameters of success. It's like, well, you need to be making this much money to be a successful person. No, you don't. As long as you're making money to meet ends. And you know what, I relate this to, like, in Italy, I don't know, or in Europe, their lifestyle is so much different than ours. Here in America, it's hustle, work, hustle. You go to Italy and it's like, as a tourist, we would be walking around and we'd see people in the suits, like, during 2-3 in the afternoon at, like, cafe just drinking, and we're like, what's going on here? Like, it's like, you wouldn't be doing that here in America. You'd be like, why aren't you at work? No, they take like an hour for lunch, then an hour later they'll go take an hour for an espresso and a cappuccino. It's like, it's a much more relaxed style, but in the end, that doesn't make them any less successful than us here. It's all about what makes you happy, and that's one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur is you have
that flexibility.
You have that flexibility. Clocking the 9 to 5, yeah, it's great, but at the same time, you're stuck 9 to 5. You can't really go anywhere or do anything.
That's a really great point, and I think something when we attribute success to financial gain, that's definitely happened in the U.S. more. And if you look at the mental health in the U.S., it's been on the decline as we are continually trying to get a little bit more. Just a little bit more time. They did a survey of people who are excited about autonomous cars and said, well, like if you had an autonomous car and it would drive you to work, what's the first thing you do? You know what the number one thing people would do is more work.
What?
So on the way to work, they want to be able to cram more work in. And I think like just people not taking lunch breaks. The first time I traveled to Europe, I was surprised that, we were making a big spaghetti for lunch, and I'm thinking, this is going to be like a 2-hour lunch. And they were like, hey, you want a glass of wine? And I was thinking, a glass of wine for lunch? And they're just like, yeah, because the lifestyle there is about enjoying your free time. And if adults are doing that here in the U.S., guess what the kids are learning? The kids are overbooked too. When we get students, they say, I'm having trouble with time management. And then I listen to their schedule and I think, you don't have a problem with time management. You have a problem with time. You don't have enough time. There's nothing you can do even if you manage your time the best if you're overbooked.
Yes. Yeah. Is that something you see out of curiosity? Because I know that's become an even bigger, there's just the more and more things we try to cram into kids' schedules, and probably even post-pandemic, the fact that certain things can be done on Zoom too is that, well, you can squeeze that in. You don't have to go anywhere. What are, like, I guess the biggest challenges that kind of you're seeing among students that they're grappling with in this environment?
Yeah, I think it really is. I think it's well, there's a number of things, but I think the time management piece is something that students are struggling with, and it really boils down to prioritization. Many savvy students will know that they're overbooked. They'll know that they're trying to build up these extracurriculars to get into college. My dad said getting into UVA is a really good thing. So what do I need to do to get into UVA? Yeah. I need to fill my schedule with as many extracurriculars as I possibly can. And when you ask them, well, why are you in these? Why are you doing? Are you interested in like policy because you're in the UN club? And it's like, no, I'm just doing it because it sounded good. Why are you in band? Oh, I've heard that playing the violin makes you more likely to get to an Ivy League school. And I think that's not extracurriculars should be reflecting your passions, not your end goals. And so I think that's a big aspect of it. And I think another thing that students, at least the savvy students, struggle with is, their screen time and how that dominates their time. I've actually in the last year, I've had students who've said, I'm actively removing Instagram and TikTok from my phone because I realize once I start, it's so addictive. I can't get off of the app. And so I think we're starting to see students be able to understand that on a very high level and start to respect their time more. And I think what I try to tell them is it's okay to have downtime. Not everything has to be 100% all of the time. And that's what's many times reflected on social media is, look at Michael's Instagram. Look at how much fun he has, right? Because Michael maybe posts the best picture every day, right? That's one moment in his life, and it's one moment in a vacation. His whole life isn't like that. Some moments he's just sitting around not doing anything.
He's looking, saying, what do I post on Instagram? Spending out what's a good picture to post on Instagram.
Right.
No, but it's so true. I think that you see ourselves as adults too, just the temptation of it. And I remember listening to a podcast on leisure and how in today's world we tend to, in our modern world, we divide work and then we just work so much that what's left is rest, where it's like work or do nothing. So like we work, and then our only downtime is, watch TV, check social media, and we've kind of lost what the ancients had, which was the notion that you had to have this time of leisure whereby you neither do nothing nor work. Like the purpose of work is to provide time for leisure where you then grow as a person. You read, you engage a little more with what you're reading. TV is kind of a brainless exercise. You don't really like engage or contemplate, but you read, you find a passion, like you said, to do an extracurricular that you actually enjoy doing is leisure because it's growing you as a person. And as we get into this modern world, I think especially for the younger people in today's world, that they've crowded out so much of their time with what's essentially work, because there's school and then things I add to, like you said, for a goal, not because I love them, that all that's left is rest, essentially, which is like that do nothing phase, sleep, eat, and watch TV, because our brains can't handle it anymore. But losing leisure is such a loss.
Yeah, I think reading is such a novel concept to many students. Like they will read as part of a class assignment, but if I ask them, hey, what do you read during the summer? And they say, oh, whatever is assigned to me. And I think there's not that aspect of reading to just enjoy something with no purpose in mind. And that's a much different exercise. And I think that's something that adults and students struggle with. I think as we're moving into a different age, I think, it's easy to say all social media is bad or all this sort of screen time is bad. I think it has a place, but finding a place for it that is productive to us, right? The technology that we use should be serving us in some way, not the other way around. I think something I read in a book for leisure recently was that the reason why social media apps don't charge you anything is because that's not the product you are. They're using your data. You're the product there, and they're just selling your data and just consistently gathering more of your attention and selling it to advertisers. And so, I personally try to do this, but I think that for students, there's also just so much technology that they're not really equipped to. I think a good example of that is, have either of you used ChatGPT yet?
No, not yet.
You know what that is?
I know it is. I had a student ask me about an assignment, and I thought, I wonder if I asked ChatGPT to write me an essay on the Civil War, what would it look like? It was better than I could write. And it's not just, and so it's these sort of technologies that, we fear are going to take over. I think I'm not as worried about that. I'm thinking that we need to think about how they're going to integrate with our society now. And is the school system we're in now, is it not serving that need, right? Because if we're really asking students to be locked into a room and take a test where they won't have access to the internet at all, what kind of jobs, kind of job requires that, right? So why are we still teaching this manner? So anyway, as an educator, so one of the things I worry about is we're not adapting fast enough to meet the needs. I think that's the greater, I think for me the threat is less Terminator or Matrix, and more
Skynet.
more like Wall-E. If you remember the Disney, where basically you failed to integrate, so now you are subservient to that. Basically, you just float around and you're incapable of doing things that don't involve the screen. The screen really doesn't control you. You have the freedom, right? All the people in Wall-E on the ship, they have the freedom to get off their, floating chair thing and do something else. No one's stopping them. The machine isn't stopping them. But they've reached the point where they're so inert, they've lost the capability to do that. So for us to get to the point where we, like you said, we use these tools at our disposal, but we, especially for the kids that I think have grown up, like I talked with my friends a lot that we're kind of like the last generation, born 92, that remembers a time before computers and the internet was ubiquitous. Like I remember not having a computer. There's a generation after us that doesn't have that memory. Like their earliest memories, I see it in my youngest cousins, right? 2-3 years old, the screen is part of their life already.
Yeah, they're already on iPads playing Minecraft instead of what at our age we would have been reading books, because that's what our mother said, go read an hour.
Great illustrated classics.
Exactly.
So having grown up in that world, how did they make sure that they're using that as opposed to being used by it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's also difficult coming from our generation and seeing that and not judging the younger generation, saying, you don't have enough critical thinking skills, you don't have this, and not giving them enough slack to think. They don't really have a choice, right? Yeah. If you're embedded with technology since you're 3 years old, then you don't know another way, right? You put them in a room full of toys and they think, what am I supposed to do with any of this? And it's like, oh gosh, it's so weird to think that, like, when I was a child, I make a castle, or there's going to be a war against the circle blocks and the square blocks, right? And which one can stack the most, And I think that that's good for creative thinking and flexible thinking, but that's just not the world we live in.
Well, and you'll see a future generation, right? I mean, 20 years from now, we might sit back and say, this new generation, they can't even write essays. And they'll come back and say, well, you taught us to use ChatGPT and just plugged it in. I never had to write an essay. But you don't realize the things that go into writing an essay that you will need in other places, not for the purpose of the essay, but for the other aspects of your life to make it fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing too I was going to mention is Google. Google's kind of changed the way we live too, because we have so much access to information at our fingertips that I don't think we actually even begin to try to retain any of that information, because anytime you just want to learn something, you're like, I don't need to learn that, just Google it for 2 seconds, And
you don't remember.
Exactly, yeah. What does the Earth revolve around? The sun. Okay. But you might not going to remember that unless you actually read a book. It's like, here, read this book about the planets and find out how they revolve, which planet's the biggest. You don't know that. Like, sometimes people will go around and ask college students, what's the biggest planet in our solar system? They won't know.
Gosh, I know.
Because
just Google it.
Exactly, because they're just so used to Googling everything, they don't learn how to retain information, and it's a problem.
Is that something that you find that you have to sort of work on, sort of ways that in tutoring you break away from maybe ingrained habits of the screen to sort of get other skill sets?
I mean, I'll have sessions where a student is actively on their phone, and I'll think, God, your parents are paying good money for me to sit here and educate you. And so getting them to disconnect from that. But also, I mean, getting students to develop those critical thinking skills like you're talking about, Michael, where, I ask, how many people do you think live in the state of Virginia? Oh, I can Google it. Well, hold on a second. Let's stop and think about the critical thinking necessary to do that. If you can't even come up with something that's in the right ballpark, I would say something is failing in the school system. Number sense is extremely important. I mean, I've had occasions where not just students but friends will not know the difference between should it be $10 an hour or $1,000? And I think, you mean you're not even in the right ballpark if you don't know the difference between $10 an hour and $1,000 an hour, right? So that's good number sense, and that won't. Google will not train you to have good number sense. Google will train you to get the right answer. And so without those critical thinking skills, I think the workforce has dramatically changed, and I don't see a world in which critical thinking skills aren't valued. And so that is a problem. So we do need to figure out how to get these programs to help serve our need, right? So I'm sure somebody's developed this, but something for Google might be, which is the biggest planet? And Google would say, what do you think the answer is?
Yeah.
Right? Like, guess first, and then
I'll tell
test
you.
that hypothesis, right? That's critical thinking skills. Taking a guess even if I'm wrong, right? Like, how many times has Alex had a show? 10,000? It's like, you think he's been on 10,000 of these shows? Okay, cool. Tell me how you came up with that number. There's 365 days in a year. He does it once a week. Yeah.
Exactly, which is...
He doesn't look that old.
Or he looks really good person.
Exactly, for 10,000 years. No, it's just, which I think is the key, and it's why it's so beautiful, I think, what you guys do, not just for, those whose parents are dedicated, but to go to that, the under-resourced kids and say, all right, because those are the kids I think they're most likely to just have a screen shoved in front of them and say, all right, I don't have enough resources to teach you, here's a screen. But that you guys actually go and make sure that they're developing those skills, because we know that in those populations, the next generation of leaders and geniuses, they're all there. It's just, can we kind of bring out what's there instead of just tamp it back and stick a screen in front of it?
Yeah, I think that's whenever we teach LEAP every year, I ask them for a list of rules, class rules, and I have them develop them. And one of the first rules is no phones during class. And it's so great to hear them say that. And they say, and I say, why should we not have phones? And they say, well, if somebody's talking, we should be paying attention to them and asking them follow-up questions. And so they usually elect devil's advocates. And, when we have critical thinking questions, it's hard to get students to answer. And we say, if somebody gives an answer, should always say, thanks for guessing. Good, try to encourage your fellow students to take guesses and everybody to participate. And I think it just can't happen organically in the way the school systems are structured right now. So I'm really happy that we can serve that need, especially with these students, because, at the end of it, it's amazing the growth you can see in a program like the LEAP, which is, it's only 6 weeks, but 6 weeks, 5 days a week, you can make a pretty significant impact in students' lives.
Absolutely. Lee, I feel like we could be here for 2 hours and more talking to you. It's always, I feel like I always learn so much, and just going back and forth, it's such a pleasure. But always got to ask the last question, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if this is something really they're interested in pursuing for their child, or to talk about, or for any of the other things you do?
I'm going to list my personal cell phone number. No, I'm kidding. So for Clayborne, any education-related inquiries, you can go directly to our website, clayborne.com, CLAYBORNE.com. And then if you contact us, our manager is very quick to respond. You can also say, is it possible to talk to Lee? He'll connect you with me. If you're interested in getting involved in the Better Future Foundation, it's betterfuturefound.org. You can also just Google Better Future Foundation on Clayborne's website, and you can link to it from there. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to start a website, my other business is 8hats.com. We wear 8 hats, so you don't have to.
There you go.
And we're super responsive there, and you can get a website up and running for as little as $35 a month. And so it's just a resource that is helpful for a lot of young entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I'm calling Nick after this and saying, all right, when can we get him back?
When do we get him back?
I love that.
I feel like we only really scratched the surface of what we actually want to talk about, right?
We can go so much deeper.
I'd love that. Yeah, and if you're interested in participating in LEAP, I'll send you the dates this summer. Absolutely. If you want to come out for a quick session, we'd love to have you out.
Absolutely. Oh, let's do that. I'll get that from you.
Great.
Lee, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
Always
great conversation, very insightful too. Yeah, it was great to get Lee's perspective on so many different, issues that I think the youth is facing in education today.
And to know that there's solutions out there for
exactly.
we can work on them.
Yeah, exactly. There are people out there who are doing great work to fix that, and that's good. That's great for the community and Charlottesville and beyond, really.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this has been a fantastic show.
Thank you, Alex.
It's been great hosting with you.
It's been
Thanks
fun.
for all the great questions. looking forward to next week as well. We're going to have on Horton Vineyards as well as Jennifer Blanchett from Flower Girl CVille. So some more. I guess always got a very floral, agricultural theme.
Horton Vineyards, is that like a winery?
Yep. So just got some agricultural theme Nick has put together for us next week. Just always appreciate being here with you, hosting.
Appreciate
Thank you, Judah,
Alex.
behind the camera. Always making everything work out, working on our technical side. As always, thank you all, our audience. Be sure to send us any questions, comments, people you'd like us to feature on this show. It's always a joy to feature amazing entrepreneurs, and thank you all so much for that. Thank you, Emergent Financial Services, for presenting us, as well as our partners at Craddock Serious Insurance, Castle Hill Cider, Forward Adelante, and of course, love being here on the I Love CVille Network set. On behalf of Michael and myself, thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. But until that time, as we like to close out on the show, hasta mañana.